Welcome back to Stat 7 Sports. This is Contain Kunas, and welcome to conference tournament season. It's going to be starting from this past weekend, which we had a couple of the starts happened. A couple of the conferences finished as of yesterday. One game right now going on between East Tennessee State and Wofford. That game will have some significance in this NCAA bracket coming up, but it's going on from this past weekend all the way to next Sunday. Now, for any heads up for how the whole NCAA tournament goes about, you have a full 68 teams along the line. You'll have 32 automatic qualifiers, which is all 32 of the conferences, whoever wins the conference tournaments. Then that leaves you with 36 at-large bids, which ends up leading to 4 play-in games. 2 of them are going to be 16 versus 16, and the other 4 are usually going to be between either 11 seeds or 12 seeds based off of how good some of the automatic qualifying teams are. Like East Tennessee State, they can end up stealing a 10 or 11 seed potentially and knock someone down to like a 5-12 matchup potentially. Now, as I was saying earlier, we've already had 5 conference tournaments come and go off of this past weekend, and we have 5 automatic qualifiers. Starting off with the Atlantic Sun with Liberty. They're probably going to be about a 12 seed. Then you have the Big South with Winthrop. They'll be a 16 more than likely. The Missouri Valley is, Bradley, and that is one that's interesting because that is one that did steal a bid potentially, because the top seed and the expected team to win the bid was Northern Iowa, and they are on the cusp of being a bubble team from a non-Power 5, Power 6 conference. So that is one of the few bubble teams from the mid-major conferences. Then you have with Ohio State Valley, Belmont makes its yearly tradition to where they've been in a lot of the times. And then in the Mountain West, you have Utah State, who last night ended up being San Diego State, the projected number 1 seed, one of the number 1 seeds in the bracket, but because of that loss, they'll likely go down to a number 2, and Utah State was a bubble team without that victory, so they will likely be a 10 or 11. Now, going back to those non-Power 5, Power 6 teams in this case, for the NCAA basketball, I'm counting the Big East as a power conference. Like in NCAA football, it's kind of a reach, but the American would be that 6th conference in that case. But for this one, you have out of those teams that win or lose their conference tournaments, they're going to be in as locks. You got San Diego State, as I said earlier. They lost. They're going to be in as a 1 or a 2 seed. You have Dayton, who currently is projected to be a 1 seed, and at the Atlantic 10. And they're supposed to be the 1 seed that replaces San Diego State. Houston is one of those mid-tier teams where they'll be around 7 to 10, but they are a lock to make the tournament at this point. I don't see anything that their conference tournament loss could do that would affect that. Gonzaga, same way. They'll be a 1 seed. Maybe alter a bit if they lose in the tournament, but there is a couple quality teams in the West Coast Conference like BYU and St. Mary's, which will also make it. But BYU is going to be around the 5-6 line, and St. Mary's will be around the 8 line. Now for those non-power teams that are bubble teams, some of the ones that are fighting for those 36 at-large bids if they don't win their tournaments. Richmond is right now currently on the outside looking in, but in the Atlantic 10. But at this point, if they would be the second Atlantic 10 team that would make the tournament, because Dayton is actually the only one from the A10 projected to make it, which is surprising because that used to be one of the biggest mid-major. Then you have Dayton. My apologies, that is incorrect. Dayton will make the tournament, but with the American Conference, it's Wichita State, the yearly shockers, they're always usually around the 7 to 10 line, no matter how good they are. Besides that one year where they had their entire season where they went undefeated and they were a 1 seed, then got beat by Kentucky in the second round. Well, in the round of 32. But they're a bubble team at this moment, currently on the outside looking in, but they're one of the first 4 out. Then you have Cincinnati also on the outside looking in. Same with Memphis. Since they had their James Wiseman incident, the potential number 1 overall pick, that 5-star center where Tim Hardaway had his trouble with it. My bad. Penny Hardaway had his trouble with him, to where after the first about 8 games, he's been ineligible for the rest of the season. So he just went pro and disregard the whole season. But on there you have Northern Iowa, as I said, from the Missouri Valley, 25-6. They had a loss in their tournament to Drake that didn't win the conference, but Bradley won the conference instead. So Bradley will be an automatic qualifier, and Northern Iowa is going to fight for one of those last bids, currently on the next 4 out. Then there's East Tennessee State, who's playing right now as I'm recording this video against Wofford. It should be right around halftime. And let me check. As we speak, they are winning 36-31 at halftime against Wofford. So if they win that game, they would not be a bubble team. They would be an automatic qualifier. But more than likely, they'll make the tournament regardless. But it's not for sure, because Wofford is about 7th in their conference with like an 8-10 conference record. So there's no way they would make the tournament if they would lose this game. That could be a potential bid stealer. Then going into the Power 6, you start with the ACC, where this one's actually fairly straightforward for the fact that that's all going to start tomorrow afternoon with the Wake Forest Pitt game. It's an odd one to see that North Carolina is the lowest seed in the entire tournament. Let me just update. There you go. So it's been a struggle for Roy Williams. He's had his worst conference. He's had his worst season maybe ever at North Carolina. But just like him and actually the vast majority of this conference, pretty much everyone besides the teams with the double byes aren't expected to make the tournament. But with one exception. So you have your lock with Florida State, Louisville, Duke, and Virginia. Yes, Florida State actually won their conference, and I usually want to use something that is like visuals that are usually something that is from game time, but I just found this picture for Jarrett of Florida State, and I just couldn't help but include that the sniper from deep. That's just fun. That just looks awesome. But your only bubble team in the entire conference is NC State, and they're the 5 seed in the bracket. So if they would end up winning, they would end up having a 4-5 matchup against Duke in the next rounds. And while it's not a must-win for them, that would pretty much solidify their case for being in the tournament. They'll probably be a 9 or a 10 seed. And yes, all 5 of them are currently projected to make it. Then if you go to the Big East, you got Creighton who won the division, won the conference. Villanova is expected to be as high as a 2 seed. Same thing with Seton Hall. Seton Hall and Creighton could be a 2 or a 3 seed. Butler is expected to be a 5 or a 6. So those are the ones that are set. As I was saying, Seton Hall, Villanova, Creighton, Butler. All of them in order from what they actually finished in conference, but Villanova will probably have the highest seed amongst them all. Then you have Providence also being a lock. Then from the bubble teams left over, Providence should make the tournament. Then you have Marquette, who started out very strong. They may have the the scoring leader in the country with Marcus Howard, but they aren't set. They're on the bubble between. They're projected to be in at this point, but they're projected to be a 10 seed at this point. So if you get a decent bit of bid stealers from those non-power conferences, they can end up seeing some trouble. And then there's Xavier, who not projected to be in, but if they make a run if they get a couple wins of the tournament and winning against getting a win against DePaul and then winning against Villanova, that might give them a good shot of making it in. But they will still need some help from the other non-power conferences, and not too many bubble teams go on a run in their tournaments. But as you can see, 6 are expected to make it, with Creighton, Seton Hall, Providence, Butler. Who am I missing? Yeah, Villanova and Marquette. There's the other 2. Now if you go into the Big 12, where they're projected to get the majority of the most picks into this field because they seem like the most balanced amongst all the conferences. So you do have a point where they could potentially get 11 teams in the field. As with this whole conference, you can get that 11 seed Indiana to make it. But not all 11 seeds are locks at this point. So for now, your locks are the conference champion Maryland, led by Anthony Cohen, and you got Penn State, even though they are on the lower tier of it in their conference. Michigan State will be a 3 seed. Iowa will be a 5, roughly. Michigan's going to be on the 6-7 line. Ohio State around the same area. Wisconsin's going to be around a 6 seed. And Illinois is going to be around the 8-9 matchups. Now, for the ones that are still in consideration, there's you have the 8 as locks, and then you have Rutgers should make it, even though they are at 8-9 seed. Indiana, yes, I did show them already. Oh, actually, I mentioned them already. And then Purdue is the one most on the bubble if you're trying to get an 11th team in. So at this point, they would not be. They'd be on the outside looking in, trying to get some help getting a couple wins in the field. And yeah, they're the only conference expected to get double-digit bids. Then you go to the Big 12, where right now they have only 3 teams that are locks to be in the field, with two teams that are the 1 seeds between Kansas and Baylor. Then you have West Virginia also as a lock. Then outside of those, you get Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Texas, and Oklahoma State trying to fight for some of those last little bids. Texas has kind of gone on a run towards the latter part of their schedule to make it to where they were definitely on the bubble towards the latter portion, to where if they would have got in without it, it would have been like a 13 or 14 seed, which is not realistic. Actually, might even be impossible. But Texas Tech and Oklahoma seem to be on the upswing at this point. Oklahoma will probably be a 9 or a 10 seed. Texas Tech is around that 10 seed point. And right now, Texas is in the last 4 in, so they would be in those first 4 matches against Dayton. Well, in Dayton, not against Dayton. If that would end up being a matchup, that'd be great. You'd have to get some crazy things to happen. And Oklahoma now currently on the outside looking in. Then we go with the Pac-12, who for the past few years has only gotten about 3 or 4 teams on average in, and they even had 1 year that they only got 2. But this year they're definitely more competent than they have been towards the latter part of the 2010s. where you could see as many as 7 teams making this. Because you already know Oregon's going to make it, Colorado, Arizona, USC is also going to make it. They have around the same resume roughly as an LSU, where you've got them, they've been linked with a lot of the bracketologists has that as a link for a first round matchup, even though they've already played each other in the Staples Center earlier in the season. Now with the bubble teams, you get Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA. So despite all the backlash that UCLA has had through all the some of the allegations they went through and some of the player turmoil with well, not really turmoil, but Sharif O'Neal, Shaq's son transferring away because of limited playing time and had some heart problems. So he's going back to his dad's alma mater. But potentially you get 7 on it, and all 7 are currently projected, with UCLA being one of the last 4 in. Then you go out to the final conference, the SEC. So with what's left up on this, just like the which was it? The ACC, it is fairly straightforward on who's expected to make it, with a couple small exceptions. Now, the first 2 rounds of the SEC tournament, most of those teams don't have a shot to make it. Don't have a shot to make it in the NCAA tournament unless they win the whole thing. The only exceptions on it is Florida should make it despite their last-second loss to Kentucky after blowing an 18-point lead. So they went from being a 2 seed in the tournament to being a 5 seed because of wins by Auburn, Mississippi State, and LSU. Now, the 2 on the outside looking in at this point is your 6 seed and your 11 seed. So Arkansas against Vandy. 14 to, discount Arkansas in this case, but 14-7, you got to win the whole tournament, which seems crazy for that 8 seed Tennessee, who made it to the Elite 8 last year. Well, the Sweet 16 in one of the best games in the NCAA tournament against Purdue and Carson Edwards. That was a very fun matchup, but you're going to have to get them to beat Alabama, beat Kentucky, probably beat either Mississippi State or Florida, and then beat whoever's left in the championships. And that's not to be expected, even though that would be a dangerous team. Georgia looked like a complete mess. Ole Miss has Breein Tyree, and that's about it. Missouri has no offense. A&M has no offense. That's going to be a drag of a game. Vanderbilt has finally learned how to win a game, which could be trouble for Arkansas, but at this point, you're going to get Arkansas most likely against South Carolina, to where in that matchup, even though Vanderbilt just beat South Carolina in the last game of the season, which really hurt their tournament hopes, in that, more likely you get an Arkansas-South Carolina matchup where it's going to be an elimination game for one of them. And really, both of them are going to need another win after that against LSU just to be able to get in. But in this case, you have 4 locks with Kentucky, Auburn, LSU, and Florida. Kentucky's fighting to be a 2 seed potentially. Auburn will probably be around the 3 or 4 seed. And then LSU and Florida at this point around 8 or 9. And before the past couple of days, Mississippi State was projected as the last team in, but now they're around the outside looking in, and Arkansas is probably about 10 to 15 deep in the bubble right now. So really only 4 of them are expected to make it. Mississippi State would be a 5th. But with that being left over, from everything that's left over, what do you have left from this bracket? You have your 68 teams. You'll have 23 of the 32 conferences that are most likely going to get only 1 bid. bid team in the tournament, which is whoever team's going to win their conference. Then you're going to have from all the other conferences with multiple bids. 10 of them will be Big 10, 7 will be Pac-12, and this is approximation at this moment, but this can be altered slightly in the future based off of team performances in the tournaments. But 6 Big 12, 6 Big East, 5 ACC, 4 SEC, 3 West Coast, which being Gonzaga, BYU, and St. Mary's. Then you have 2 American, that is being Houston and Cincinnati at this point. And then the last 2 from the Mountain West, one being San Diego State and one being the conference champion Utah State. And all of that accounts for those 68 teams. So coming up, we're going to get the bracket selections show being next Sunday the 15th, after all the conferences are done. So whenever that comes up, I will be doing a bracket competition that I will post in the links down below in that video. So I'll be posting that either that Sunday or Monday. That's going to have that'll have my bracket selection, and I'll be giving a list of rules in the description down below, and I'll explain that whenever that comes. There will be a small prize, a small monetary prize. Well, I will explain how that's going to go on. It's going to be through an app called Venmo. So I'll make a couple of requirements on trying to get that monetary prize. So I want to be able to build up this channel, and I think a lot of people would be interested in this sort of competition. So it's not going to be anything too drastic, but it will be fun. So whoever makes the top score amongst anyone in that bracket competition, there's only a couple requirements that I need to be on there. One, you have to be subscribed to this channel, so I can make sure I know who it is. I know who it is, not really by name, but I have an identification that I can link from this account to whoever's account you have on the ESPN Bracket Challenge. And from there I'll be able to link that money over and just get it to where this channel could grow, and we can have a little fun with this. I do some sort of bracket challenge every single year. This is just the first one I put out onto YouTube. So with that being said, more content is going to be coming in the future. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, please comment down below. Please share this out to other people. I'm trying to make this to be a bit more of a grand event, more grand than this double-digit amount of subscribers that I have. But with that being said, I am the Contained Kunas. This is Stat7 Sports, and I'll see y'all next time.